Hello everyone and welcome back to Massalia Tales. In the previous episode we had a new war against the Gallic Confederation in support of our client state the Cimbri, who they attacked. They immediately took one of our settlements, so that was a bad start, but then in retaliation Heraclides took an army including a load of mercenary backup to go and destroy their main force in the old Carnute land, so that turned things around a bit. Then Artemios in the far east faced a very dangerous situation as he was totally surrounded by an army of technologically advanced troops. They, unfortunately, simply ground his men down. They were unable to escape. Artemios himself had to go into the fight and was killed in the melee, and soon the same fate met the rest of the daemons of Polymus. But we didn't have much time to grieve because immediately the Gallic Confederation made another attack against us. This time though we had a more serious garrison and were able to use the standard choke point and cavalry raid tactics to destroy this army, defeating their attack force. So now let's continue. The actions of the Gallic Confederation had given the Timucoi all the justification they needed to finally expand into Belgica, continuing the momentum they had gained from the recent annexation of the Carnute tribe in Gaul. Their attack was a continuation also of the trend that had dominated Gaul throughout the 3rd century BC, the Hellenization of the Celtic peoples. Even the Gallic Confederation ruled over a population that primarily worshipped the gods enshrined in the temples of Massalia. This meant that even those tribes who remained under Massalia's protection, such as the Namnites and the Cimbri, were slowly but surely finding themselves absorbed into the Massalian world. It was a blessing for some and a prophecy of doom for others. So here we are in the aftermath of that defense against the Gallic Confederation, where we did massive damage to them because their army was surrounded in most cases as it routed. That means it's going to be totally destroyed back on the campaign map, and as you can see, only their general escaped with a handful of followers. The entire army wiped out. The garrison army still pretty heavily damaged, but that doesn't matter, of course, being a garrison. That's the last fight they're going to see, perhaps forever. So that was a nice victory, and the Gallic Confederation are now starting to look quite weak. There are the survivors hanging around. We don't really need to pay them too much consideration. The Cimbri have taken back Bagacum from the Gallic Confederation, taking them down to only a couple of regions now, and we of course are bringing over Eusticus and Bendist from the east, having finished taking down the Nervi to come and join this war just in time. So Bendist is going to rush across there towards Trevorum. There's the survivors of the Nervi. They're raiding in our territory, which is really annoying, and I don't have anyone around to stop them. I could recruit a general, but we're just going to leave them, and that's going to resolve itself in a moment. Now you can see that with the death of Artemios and the destructions of the daemons, Arachosia have recreated the Horde of the Steppe, and they're now at war with us, and any one of those many armies down there could come up and attack Sarai, perhaps all of them. Luckily Sarai defended right now by Arche Bosphorus on our behalf. I'm going to recruit a new army to help out defending, and this army is going to be steppe themed. We can only recruit steppe units, so we're going to have an army that's full of horse archers and lancers to see how they do. Meanwhile, another themed army, our Mesopotamian themed one under Epaphroditos, is going to start finally attacking Hayestan again after spending a long time wandering around trying to find a Hayestan target that wasn't already under attack. I'm going to use this spy here to try and reduce the garrison of this city. I basically never do this in this campaign because I believe it's overpowered to use the poisoning, especially in the older versions of the Divide et Impera mod, but it fails anyway. But we're going to go in and do this siege. You can see the enemy does have an advantage. They have a nice big army inside. We're going to start making siege equipment and just try and siege them out. No real need to attack these walls because the enemy with the advantage probably will attack me. Now the Nervi go and try and storm these walls here back in Europe, and of course that's not going to go all that well for them. They misjudged it. So a quick auto resolve from the garrison is able to destroy much of the Nervi's remaining strength. They retreat, they'll continue to take attrition. It's basically over for them right now. Now Hayestan come to me with a very interesting offer. They ask to be my client state. They only want me to pay them 18,000, which isn't very much considering that Hayestan are actually still really big, and getting a client state that size will get you so much money in the long run that paying 18,000 for it's nothing. So that's almost an interesting offer, but I'm not going to go for it in this case because we've already been stung quite a lot by trying to get people to stop being at war with us over here, and then they'll just go straight back and betray you the moment they can. That already happened with Arakosia, which was the downfall of the Daemons, and now we're not going to do the same thing with Hayestan, especially because they are potentially much more powerful than Arakosia. Persia also want peace. They, though, want me to just pay them for the honour despite my advantage, so we are going to turn them down. In reaction to that, their garrison at Gore, which Cretheus has been besieging for a long time now, sallies out, but because of the long siege, they're at half strength, they have basically no ability to fight, and Cretheus just cuts them down with a quick auto-resolve. The majority killed, and I believe they're out of supplies anyway, so the remaining couple of units will surrender at the end of the turn. In fact, here it is right now. So we've captured Gore from the Persians, the first settlement actually taken from Persia in this war, after having defeated their army previously. So Cretheus now going to replenish, and he can probably just keep moving on Persia later on. We don't know of any Persian armies in the area. Now, looking back to Epaphroditos, he wasn't attacked, interestingly, by Hayestan, so he'll continue the siege. And I also spotted these 3 Colchis armies that seem to be sneaking down towards Ecbatana and fortifying there. Not 100% sure what those guys are up to. We're going to have to give them the benefit of the doubt because we don't have any armies to react to that move right now. Bendis is going to continue his push, and as he reaches our old settlement, the garrison hasn't replenished yet, so there's no trouble at all in just taking it right back. So that's fantastic. That puts the Gallic Confederation in even more of a tight situation, and kindly they didn't even destroy my Hellenic temples here, so the people still going to be getting to worship the right gods in this situation. Heraclides is teaming up with the Heraclidi, his backup army, to prepare to attack the Gallic Confederation, and Bendis might as well now get involved in the next turn. I'm making another themed army here, a Gallic themed one, full of Gallic units. It's not going to be very powerful because we can only recruit the low level Gallic units, but it's good enough as a backup army, just providing numbers. Now, Eustochus isn't really needed back over there in the west, so instead he is going to run up to the very top of the map to try and take Alabu from the Confederation and wipe the Confederation out. So that should be a nice little capture right on the edge. The Nervii, there's their 2 units left. They're basically dead, and interestingly, they decide to try again attacking the walls. And the balance bar had none of their side represented whatsoever. They were just desperate. I think the AI goes a bit insane once their faction has no regions left, and they just try and do whatever they can, even if it's impossible. So the Nervii are wiped out in that way. And now the Hayestan, who Epaphroditos had under siege, do sally out. I think they're out of supplies. The balance bar now in our favour because they don't have the wall supporting them. So this is going to be one of those battles that I think is even easier than it looks. Auto-resolve, only a Pyrrhic victory available, which is outrageous. So we'll just have a very quick look at this battle. I think it should be over very fast. I think the old man got it right. That's my report in short. Tell your master that the project is going well. Many of the former warriors of our enemies have, as he predicted, flocked to join our army, or our payroll to be more precise. Soon every man who would ever raise a sword against Massalia will be in fact marching under the Massalian banner, and under what some might call control. But I would like you, if you would, to add to this report that I continue to express my concern that arming and organising Massalia's enemies is a bad idea, even if they say they will fight for us. This Celtic army is but a pup soon to grow into the kind of Celtic army we see all too often, one that does all it can to see Massalia bleed. So here's another pretty standard battle against a Hayestan garrison happening in a double speed, as you can see here. The enemy's cavalry making an initial attack onto our left flank where I had my own cavalry hanging about. I decided to just charge them. I was going to bring in infantry to support, but I rapidly saw that my cavalry simply outclassed the enemy's cav just disappearing underneath my own. So that's all fine, we're just going to break through. On the other side, my cav not contested, and we're also going to be able to outflank the enemy with infantry as well, so that's going to make life easier. More cav coming over to come into this melee, which the other cav already lost, so obviously that's not going to go too well. My cav just move on to take on this unit as well, while my infantry are going to start outflanking the enemy's infantry. So with the enemy's cav now dead, we have the definitive cav advantage. All we need to do is target the enemy's archers to bring them down and use my infantry units to start moving around to surround the enemy. The only real restriction to how quickly we win this battle is how quickly I can give the orders, because a lot of my men are hanging around idle because it's too difficult to give all the attack orders I need to at once with so many targets available for our men. So our cavalry there, making contact behind the enemy's lines, taking out archers, destroying their morale very quickly. Enemy infantry starting to rout as well, just in the straight melee with my men, and soon enough that's going to lead to a chain rout as more and more of them get taken out and more of my men go and conduct a rear attack. So soon, with their general going last, it's a decisive victory. So it's another one of those battles, not quite the Pyrrhic victory predicted by the game itself, but yeah, we sort of know that's the case by now. So we lost pretty much nothing, the enemy losing so much that they can't hope to continue and they're out of supplies anyway. So here we are at the start of the next turn, many messages to go through. Cretheus is getting a new wife according to this. We have the chance to get him to marry for a small fee, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. We've also now captured that Hayestan settlement, so we'll go ahead and occupy it and get Epaphroditos inside. I wanted to check out Cretheus' wife, and it's a brutal wife, as you can see, increasing his authority to a very high stat level now, but also increasing slave unrest, which is slightly inconvenient. I also noticed that here on the shores of the Caspian, that weird council sort of continuing there, the Bactrians and the Egyptians just staring wistfully out to sea. Now we've got a Hayestan army here right next to that settlement we just captured. It was so close to coming to actually help out. So that could be dangerous, sorry, but not going to be too bad. We're going to sit inside the settlement for now and force them to attack it if they're going to do anything. And I wanted to send my spy out to see if there were any more armies we were going to have to deal with. And actually there are. We discover in the next region over, there are 2 Aracosian armies. One, the Scions of Xerxes, very powerful, heavy pikes and legionaries everywhere. The second one, a backup army, also full of legionaries. So these are the sorts of armies that took down the daemons of Polemus. I don't know how well Epaphroditos will be able to do if they came and attacked him. So we're going to have to hope they don't actually bother coming to attack that former Hayestan territory, otherwise things could get difficult. Meanwhile, Cretheus, quite far away now, is still storming against Persia. We're moving on to attack this walled settlement which we've had under naval blockade for a long time, and you can see it's really damaged already because the Persians have managed to run out of food, and that means they're taking attrition constantly. So just having these guys under siege for a couple of turns will basically wipe them out, so that's all going to be fine. Now the Asini come to me with an offer of non-aggression if I pay for it. I was up for getting non-aggression because we are weak in that particular sector. Managed to haggle them down slightly on the payment and then they accept, so that's nice. We also get the opportunity to buy Bithynia into the war with Hayestan. Not 100% sure why they asked that. I think they just want the money. I have very little faith they'll actually bother to come and help in the war. Colchis asked me to go to war with Parthava. I can't do that right now, but it potentially explains why their armies are all over my territory. They're just waiting to go and attack Parthava and they're stuck in my zone of control or something. The Namnates want non-aggression. That's great news because I thought they might actually be setting up for a betrayal of me. And we see the Persians rushing armies around. They're all taking attrition. I think Persia is in enormous trouble right now. They're probably not going to put up much more of a fight. So there's the message saying Bithynia has joined the war with Hayestan. We'll see if anything comes of that, although unlikely. And now we are in a position to go on the offensive against the Gallic Confederation again, because Abendis has now moved over to join Heraclides. So we've now got these 3 armies. There's a Namnates army standing in the way for some reason, but our 3 armies are ready to go and attack the Gallic Confederation. I'm going to lead the attack with the Heraclidi, my Gallic army. That's so that they take the siege attrition in the event that we keep the siege going. But actually I'm going to try and just rush the settlement by putting all of my armies right up next to it like this, and then checking it again. You can see the balance of power really far in our favour, so we get a nice auto-resolve and I just take that. Now I thought what would happen here would be that the Gallic forces would take most of the losses, which would be fantastic because they're easy to get back. But actually they take basically no damage, the Heraclidi, and it's the other 2 armies that take all the losses, in particular Heraclides. So I don't know if they refused to fight or Bendis had the idea of using the Greek troops instead but didn't want to use his own to get more glory. But anyway, that's a little bit of a shame. Now the other upside to using those Gallic troops to capture the settlement is they use their movement points to occupy it, and the other 2 armies will still have points to use. Now what I'm going to do with these points is first send Bendis, who could just about reach this settlement, to go and besiege it. You can see all of the Gallic Confederation's forces are coming in to reinforce that fight, so it's a hard one. But now that it's under siege, Heraclides might be able to go over and fight these 2 armies here. Now, I was kind of expecting that we might just have an advantage or the enemy would retreat or something, but actually the enemy have a fair chance here. And you can see Heraclides' army is damaged. In particular, his legionaries are at half strength, and that's the core of his army. So I decided actually I'll just go and sit next to Bendis and see if the army will go for one big decisive battle. But I actually couldn't get close enough. I'm just out of reinforcement range. So now the enemy do have the opportunity, if they want, to come and attack me with everything. But I was willing to just let that siege continue just to see if they would do it, because in the back of my mind I was thinking we probably could take all of their armies at once with only one stack, and that could be interesting anyway. Now, switching back to Cretheus, you can see the enemy have got even weaker than in the previous turn, so now we're actually able to just auto-resolve their remaining garrison out of existence and all the troops inside. So that's easy peasy, we're going to take that. It wasn't the best auto-resolve, but in the spirit of moving things along, that would have taken a long time to do manually, so I decided to just take that auto-resolve loss. We're going to get all those men back in just a single turn, so that's fantastic. So that's another Persian settlement down, and another major gain for Cretheus. We're going to get to work converting the settlement over. Going to be pretty expensive, but worth it. Eusticus is now in the position to reach Alabu, so we can get the other Gallic Confederation settlement under siege as well. I'm trying to use this spy to poison the wells again, but it failed, so having bad luck with the poisoning. I usually don't do it, as I said, so maybe it's a sign that I shouldn't even bother continuing to try, because it's just not even working. So we go up and start the siege. Enemy army inferior to us, not inferior enough for us to auto-resolve the assault, but I thought there's actually no rush here. The enemy can't do anything to us, so we might as well just siege them out until they're out of supplies. The Iceni now really cheekily enter that non-aggression pact that I just bought off them. So they've taken my money and I've got nothing for it. So that was incredibly cheeky from the Iceni. We might have to punish them for that move. The Aracosians attack Archibosphorus and move to attack Epaphroditos, so that's looking potentially dangerous right there. The Gallic Confederation ask to be my client state. They realize they're in a hugely difficult situation that they can't get out of without getting us on side. I reject the deal. Bendis is going to punish the Gallic Confederation once and for all and take all of their land, and indeed they do go for that decisive battle that I thought might happen. So everyone's coming out. The garrison's really damaged, meaning it's not actually all that far in the enemy's favour. Well, it's still pretty far in their favour, but not too much for Bendis and his elite army to handle, so I am going to give this one a go rather than retreat. Timios. A relic he was, the encapsulation of that naive spirit that his old master spouted. The attitude that the world can be conquered on trust. Perhaps in the afterlife he realizes the mistake to that, which the rest of us saw decades ago. It is military power that makes a lasting difference. You've seen it, no? People don't want to be included, they want to be protected. Look how these Persians barely bat an eyelid as we dethrone their overlords. They know we care little for their desert fancies, but at least as a colony of Massalia, there's some chance they will never see war again. The people Artemios commanded no longer enjoy that promise. Anyway, just council madness. Soon that will not matter at all. Bendis forms up to face the giant Gallic Confederation force, and they combined a lot of their armies right at the beginning of the battle, but didn't quite finish that combining before they attacked, meaning their advance is slightly messy, and they of course will meet a very ordered Massalian formation. It's a pretty standard affair, with an unusually large reserve here. We've got 2 units of the Celto-Hellenic hoplites and some veteran swords waiting at the back to act as a reserve. Otherwise, we've got a wide and thin triple-line formation, light, heavy, medium, where the light forces will probably fall back in the beginning based on what the enemy does. We also have a hill advantage, which is going to help us out. So the archers are just starting their attack on the enemy. There was a pretty audacious cavalry attack coming round, just one small unit right round the extreme left flank, but my own cavalry were just waiting there atop the hill, so we're going to be able to just charge down at them. I'm going to use the lancers for that. The enemy's unit is heavy cavalry, which technically is better than those 2 units I have, but I think I can probably overcome them anyway. They're also setting up for a chariot attack on the other side, but I don't know how effective that's going to be. So my lancers managed to make contact with this heavy cav, so that's going to stop any rear attacks they might have been going for. My medium cav will now plough in. They won't do all that well, but I'm going to send Bendis to go and support them to make sure we win that fight. But meanwhile, the enemy's chariots actually start riding along the back of our line, and that's driving our missile troops troops away because they're on skirmish mode, so pretty inconvenient actually. Unfortunately for them, those archers will now just unleash arrows on the chariots, and you can see they get cut down rapidly as the missiles impact. Some of the local swordsmen coming down to try and engage them as well, throwing javelins all over the place and missing wildly. Very dangerous there. Some of them still alive though, going to make an attack on those archers. Potentially dangerous, but we've seen before in this series actually that chariots don't kill men, they run over even unarmoured light men like archers, so that is actually fine. Those chariots will probably just go down to another volley. Meanwhile, the main fight is starting. All of the enemy's heavy infantry now pressing into the phalanx. A lot of the enemy's infantry is better than ours, and of course they outnumber us in terms of heavy infantry as usual for this series, so that means the fight will gradually be lost. We're going to have to rely on manoeuvre to win out, but we do have these cavalry units in positions that are going to give us real advantages. They've got exposed missile units at the back that the cavalry can go for. That's really going to help out. And of course we've got our own archers and pelters bombarding the enemy's heavy inf, but the enemy are actually doing the same to us. So their javelins throwing into the phalanx are going to be really deadly. They're going to hit some of their own men because they're trying to throw uphill, but it's probably worth the loss because killing these super elite hoplites is going to be really nice for them. So both sides in this early part of the battle going to take big losses from missile fire, but I think I do have the missile advantage. So meanwhile at the back, our cavalry have managed to catch some of the enemy's missile units who were just running around skirmishing from them, meaning we're going to quickly cut these guys down. Here comes another charge as these lancers really hammering these garrison units here who are trying to escape from the fight, but we're not going to let them go. At the back, the enemy actually sent one spear unit round to do a rear attack on the armour, but because we have that big reserve, we can easily respond. Here we can see one of the Celto-Hellenic hoplites having a hard time, fighting 4 enemies at once, and the enemy just kind of poking him with the spear. I mean, it's no wonder he's being killed by those pokes. They don't look particularly forceful. Eventually, he has a heart attack and dies, unfortunately, but that unit's formation is going to be fine. We're going to hold out against those spears at the back, so no threat from any further moves. The main fight, though, is still grinding away. The enemy's starting to inflict casualties on our hoplites. You can see the loss is starting to mount up. The archers really need to do the work here because our hoplites, with their very low attack, can't really kill the enemy, so it's really up to the arrows falling into those groups of enemies to bring their numbers down. And here we are a tiny bit later, and the trend kind of continuing. Our line's getting thinner and thinner. Half our men dead on this unit. The enemy taking a lot of losses as well, but they can certainly afford to take losses. So not an ideal situation right now for these hoplites. We are going to need to try and make some sort of decisive morale attack on the enemy to get rid of all these troops, because we're not going to be able to kill all of them. It never should have come to this. That dog Heracleides seems to be in league with the bloody Confederation. First his little pet army of Gauls refuses to fight, and now the enemies I explicitly dispatched him to drive off are right here at our throats. No idea where he is, of course, probably drinking with some idiotovics out in the mud. My men have already done their share to pacify the barbarians. This is beyond the call of duty. But there will be some salvage to be had from it all. For now it will be I that wins the fame of destroying the Confederation's last army, and I that enjoy the first say on what we do with these sodden lands they walked. I think it may be apt to send the Celt lover back to Britannia to wallow in obscurity, the least he deserves after this. With the threat of rear attack now subsiding, we can send some of our reserve swords to attack the enemy in the rear on their main line. Here on the right flank, making an attack doesn't really make that much difference. The enemy infantry just turn round to face it, so no major shocks happening there. Right on the other end of the line, I'm making a cavalry attack where you can see they've got all these lighter units that are going to be very susceptible to just being cut down by the quick charge bonuses of these horsemen. So you can see their morale is now getting pretty low. They've also got missile units fighting in melee there, which is always nice. We're going to cycle charge them since they didn't go the first time. The enemy do have several units who are chasing my cav around at the back, so they are attempting to stop me from rear flanking them. You can even see units coming out of the melee to come and chase the cav instead. But of course our superior maneuverability and the fact a lot of the enemy's units are small because they're from their depleted garrison make it easy for us to dodge them and still get those attacks in. So here you can see the formations on both sides really breaking down as the melee comes into its final stages here. Both sides taking extreme losses, but we're starting to win there. And as the cavalry come in to join this melee, the enemy decide to rout, so we free up a little part of the line there, going to give us a few extra hoplites to use. The main part, which is the enemy's centre right, is still fighting on thanks to the presence of their general, who we can't really kill with our units. He's too good, but you can see their morale starting to reduce as their numbers are really being hammered by our archers. Our numbers too on the verge of getting to the point where we might actually rout, but just about holding on, and just in time we're able to set up the cavalry attacks we need to come in and smash these guys from the back. And this mass cavalry attack is going to start routes all over the place, and that's going to really start having the balance bar swing in our favour now as the enemy start to lose whole units. So as their numbers dwindle, we're going to surround the remaining troops and destroy them, but we also need to hunt down all of the troops who are running about at the back of the map, having been distracted from chasing my cav. Luckily at this point the remaining enemy forces all chain routes, so we managed to get a whole third of the balance bar right off the battlefield, and it comes to an end. It's a heroic victory for Bendis. And a very important result, as these forces who we just fought, all of these elite guys, were the last of the Gallic Confederation's main armies. So now with them gone, we have an absolutely unstoppable advantage over them. So there's the result, the enemy losing a lot more than we did, including their whole garrison in the town, meaning our siege of the town is going to be very successful, of course, and the vast majority of their infantry lost. So some of them are going to escape, but it's not going to be harsh to chase them down. So here we are now in the next turn. We can come and just auto-resolve an assault on the town. They actually seem to recruit a general right into it. And Heraclides is now going to get involved when he is needed least to assault this tiny force. So Bendis is going to be conquering the settlement as a result of that, meaning the Gallic Confederation are down to just one settlement, Alabu up in the far north. We'll take a look at that in a second. First, we need to get rid of their surviving troops, and Heraclides, with all his movement points restored, is now in a perfect position to do that. They rightfully run away from him, but unfortunately for the Gallic Confederation, they encounter this Cimbri war party in the woods here, which means they can't really go very far, and Heraclides very easily just catches up to cut them down, with the Cimbri even coming in as reinforcements to make that battle even easier. So now that really is the last forces of the Gallic Confederation destroyed, and that means we've basically won this war. The region we captured is a region we've needed for a long time, actually. The second part of Germania Minor, so Vesontio, a place we captured a very long time ago, is finally going to come fully under control. Luckily, it's already really Hellenic thanks to the influence of Vesontio, so it's going to be easy to control our new capture. And in Alabu, their last region, I thought I might as well just siege them out. We could almost just auto-resolve an assault and take it now, but there's really no rush, there's nothing they can do, so we might as well just starve them out and take it for very few losses. So I am going to have to now decide what to do with my spies and forces. I'm suspecting that maybe the Iceni and maybe the Namnates have the potential to betray me, and my client state, the Cimbri, now actually getting pretty powerful, so we are going to have to keep an eye on them as well. So last thing for this episode, we're going to quickly switch back to Cretheus, because he was moving out from that Persian city, because there's another Persian city right next to it, and I thought I'd go and check it out. And you can see it's a full city with a 20 unit garrison, so a serious place, but as we see here, its garrison is severely depleted as a result of the food shortage that the Persians have been going through for a long time. So as we attack, the garrison army is virtually destroyed already, so Cretheus just needs to jump over those walls and finish them off, which he does with ease. So that's yet another major settlement taken. Persia really on the back foot, Cretheus rampaging through, the war in the east seeming to go well. The destruction of the daemons of Polymus and the heavy losses taken by the claws of the Peak under Bendis had demonstrated what much of the world had known for years, that the hoplite phalanx was no longer effective. The increased availability of heavy equipment and the common use of more versatile tactics meant that the ancient form of warfare was no longer the unstoppable power it had once been. The disciplined sword line used by more progressive generals like Heraclides was catching on as the most effective way to wage war. But the Massalians seemed unwilling to give up their hoplite traditions. This meant that the end of the age of the hoplite would only come once the remaining companies had been destroyed by the new ways.